All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Let's go. What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. I always look forward to these, man. It's like it really sets the day. And after every single space, I'm always leaving like in a good mood, inspired, motivated. It's like the perfect way to enter the weekend, man. I swear. So, shout out to everybody who's here right now. Welcome to the Creative Mind. I am your host, Andrew Lyko. I am the founder of Window Kids. And for those who don't know what Window Kids is, I'll give a brief description. The best way that I can describe ourselves is we're a hidden community of individuals who are working to unlock and enhance our abilities through creative expression. We believe in the power of the arts to inspire, enrich, and transform lives. Our focus is in our ODK energy and the way we carry ourselves through our actions. That is the best short way that I can describe ourselves, what we do, who we are, what we believe in. And every single space, man, we always have somebody new. I always look forward to these because, to be honest, Acid had like I know I follow you, you guys you follow me back, but to be honest, we haven't got that sit down. You know what I mean? We haven't got that one on one. So I'm very excited to hear your story, your come up, your moves, your direction, all that good stuff. So if you want to come up here, bro, and give yourself a quick little introduction before you get into it, now's the time.
Yeah, man, thanks very much. Yeah, my name's Matt. I'm an abstract artist on Solana. A lot of my work's kind of abstract expressionist. And yeah, I've been had my anniversary of selling my first piece about a month ago. So I've been selling my work for about a year here. And yeah, just really nervous doing spaces, man. If I'm honest, it's like my third one I've ever done. I think the last one got rugged, and the other one before that was pretty good. But kind of been sat here twiddling my thumbs, trying to draw and keep my mind occupied, waiting to come on. So yeah, really ready for it.
Man, well, first of all, thank you for coming up here, spending the time. Uh, these spaces, this one in particular, is just a conversation, man, and really, it's up to me to kind of lead the direction. So for you just kick back, be yourself. You know, what I mean, if you need a second to gain your thought, like don't hesitate to pause. You know, just take a breather, bro. Just we're just kicking it, right? Like two artists having a conversation and just getting to know each other. So
Yeah,
the,
man, for sure.
yeah, that's the vibe that we like to do here, bro. So yeah, let's go ahead and run this all the way back, bro. Because to be honest, really don't know too much about you, but I have seen your work. It's fucking phenomenal, and I do want to touch base on that. But let's run it back to young Matt, right? Do you remember the moment that you sparked in your head like, oh damn, like I want to create something? This is like the first question I always ask because I'm always curious to see what the artist's entry point is from. It can be for me, for example, it was in kindergarten, I believe, and it was like some task that we had to do, and I remember doing like some type of beach. Like I'm from Cali, so I did like a beach scene, and then from there, the teacher ended up telling my mom like, "Yo, this kid has talent, bro. Like, buy him some markers or something. Just keep him painting." So that for me, it was like the very first type of moment that I can remember it as a young kid that I kind of like sparked something to create, and I made this beach scene. So if you don't mind sharing, what was yours, if you can remember?
I don't think there was like a particular moment that I remember. I think I was that stereotypical like kid in class, not listening to anything, drawing in my sketchbook, drawing in the backs of notebooks, drawing in textbooks, drawing wherever I could, drawing on my desk. My mates used to joke that I'd probably draw in my house when I owned one, which I actually did end up doing in my first place that I stayed in. My dad he was a sports journalist, but on the side he used to kind of paint caricatures of kind of sports celebrities and stuff in South Africa, which is where I grew up. And so yeah, I was always surrounded by people creating. I mean, my dad did his whole life. He ended up kind of moving away from caricatures, and then he started a picture framing business when we still lived in Cape Town, and then he started painting and getting into galleries and things like that. So I think he was like always a really big inspiration who was kind of always around me, and I was always around him. Um, so yeah, like there was no particular moment. I just kind of feel like it's something I've always done. There's obviously baby photos and what have you of me kind of covered in paint, like everybody's got, but in the background would be about seven, eight, nine pieces of paper all kind of covered. So it definitely started from a really young age. And
Do you
yeah, it's something.
remember how young you were when you kind of started, right around that moment, roughly?
I really don't, to be honest with you. I mean, I've kept like sketchbooks and stuff from when I was about 10 or 11. So that's like the first recorded stuff I've got. But actually, my dad passed away recently, and I found like he had his drawer of all the Father's Day cards and what have you that I gave him, and there were some in there from when I was about 5, and I was drawing these like pretty mad characters, and it was quite funny to see because it's kind of the style's kind of kept the same. I mean, obviously it's developed a little bit, but like the way I draw heads and hands and what have you, kind of is similar to the way I used to draw them when I was 5. So yeah,
My condolences, bro. But man, it sounds like your father was a really dope ass man. The fact that he kind of surrounded you with his own creations and his ability, and not only that, but like saving your works. Because man, I wish I would have had something from 5 years old. Like, I don't think
yeah,
I
it was
do, man. So that's amazing.
pretty nuts to see. It was yeah, it was quite funny.
So you're surrounded by this, right? Which sounds like to you it's just normal life, creating, drawing. I mean, you see your dad doing his creations. So I think that's freaking amazing, bro. Because not everybody is brought up in that type of environment. We each have our own unique stories, but I think it's fucking beautiful when you have a family member, somebody that you look up to, that is kind of like showing you that there's a different way without you even realizing, right? Like you as a young kid, you're just doing your thing, bro. You're not even realizing what you're doing and what this can become in the future if you just stick with it. So, shout out to him one time, bro. Let me give you some claps. Actually, where's the soundboard here?
Okay.
But
Nice man.
yeah, man, no problem, bro. But so, would you say that you got most of your inspiration from your father, or what about your mother? Do you have any siblings? Like, are you the
Um,
only creative one in the
no,
family?
I was an only, well, I'm an only child. My mum was like the business person of the family. She had her own estate agency, and kind of she's a real estate agent, and really like all about figures and numbers, and like yeah, just completely almost opposite to the way my dad was. But it's quite funny because since he's passed away, they were together for like 37 years before he passed away, and since then she's kind of like, so towards the end of his life, they would do art markets once a week, and she would be like the salesperson selling all his work, and then coming home and saying, "Oh, all the tourists, they really like a scene of kind of this beach or what have you," and then he'll like grumble in the corner while he goes away to like paint a scene of the beach. And since he's passed away, my mum's actually started painting, and I think she sold her first painting like a month ago or something, and she was absolutely buzzing off of it, which was really cool to see because as you just said about my dad like encouraging and what have you, like it turns out that just being around him like encouraged my mum like at 72 years old, to go and sell, to produce and sell her first painting. um so yeah, yeah.
Bro, this is already a fire space. That's fucking incredible. The fact that your mom can create something new at 72 years old and then sell her first piece and have that rush, that feel of like, holy shit, bro, like I
Yeah,
just did that. Think
it
about
was
that, dude. It's
it
never
was really
you're
cool.
never too old to start.
100%. 100%. Everybody that says, "Oh, I've always felt that," like anybody that goes, "Oh, I can't paint or don't paint," or it's I think it's just about being patient with yourself. I think a lot of people, when they start painting, they kind of look at photorealistic work or like really realistic work and think that that's painting. And once they realize that you don't need to paint anything that you can see, just paint what you feel. That's art, and it's, I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's art. And I feel like when people make that realization, it can happen at any point in their life, but when it does, it's the greatest thing.
100%. And actually, just thinking about it, I think abstraction is probably one of the best entry points to be able to do that, because when you do abstraction, at least for me, because part of the stuff that I also do is abstraction. It's like neo expressionism, where it's like I just have my colors, I have my tools, but I just go in. It's
Yeah.
like you said, you paint what you feel. So for people who are trying to get into like the creative arts, especially painting, drawing, anything like that, and don't have a subject matter or an idea, that's definitely okay. Focus more on channeling what you feel, right? Putting down exactly what you're feeling in that moment. It sounds to me like abstractions is probably one of the best ways to do that, because you're not you're not hesitant, you're not really restraining yourself from making a movement or putting paint down.
No, 100%. I mean, it's actually quite funny because I never, it was only probably about 4 years ago that I actually started to paint abstract art. Before, I'm friends with a lot of tattoo artists, a lot of really, really good tattoo artists. And I always had this dream of like getting into tattooing. And then I made friends with tattoo artists and realized how hard it is to become really, really good. And that initial dedication, I had a kid at the time, and I was just like, couldn't like, I couldn't get in, I couldn't dedicate that much time. And so my drawing was always like, I was always trying to draw portraits of people and trying to be like semi-realistic or realistic using biro pen. And starting to paint abstract art for myself, was I found it really challenging, and I do still find it really challenging because there's nothing to gauge it on. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
see
why
what you mean, man. I see
that's
what you
why I
mean.
lean towards like abstract expressionism, because for me, it's with kids and not having time, I get really worked up, and it's just an absolute release. And it's kind of the end result isn't necessarily. I mean, you could carry on going forever, really. It's just kind of, I feel I stop when I feel it's the right time to stop. And that's usually once I've got that kind of angst of the day out, or that emotion from the day, and I release that. That's and that's that's made me fall in love with abstract painting, really.
Yeah, it's like it's a better connection with yourself, because it's more about the release and less technical. Um, but have you ever, like, all right, say you just made a piece, it's like you said, it can go on for fucking ever, but you choose when it's finished. Now, however, has there ever been a time that maybe like you have a piece and 2 weeks or a month pass by, and like you go back to it and you're like, oh shit, like I see that it needs something right here, or I'm feeling like I need to switch
Yeah,
this up.
yeah, all the time, like all the time. It's something I really struggle with as well, is like when to finish. I've got like a whole garage full of canvases that have probably been painted, like overpainted way too many times, 5 or 6 times, to the point where I go back to the piece, I'm like, oh, it needs this, and then kind of overwork it, and then kind of give up with it and paint over it, and then start again with something else completely different, and then it's like this never-ending cycle. And I think that's kind of what, since I got my iPad and started doing digital work, it's really helped my physical work as well, because it's allowed me to kind of learn where as like learn as far as I want to take paintings. If that makes sense. Like, I've learned where my
Oh, bro,
boundary is.
trust me, we're on the same page, because once I went to digital and I went back to physical, holy shit, bro! Like the growth and advancement was insane. Like I don't know what it is from going from painting to digital. Like I'm still trying to understand it myself. Like how did that happen? But for whatever reason, man, like once I went back to physical, one, I got faster. Second, I was more patient because I used to be very impatient. And obviously in digital, like you need to be sat down with your iPad, with your pen. Like you can't really make big
Yeah,
grand gestures. You know what I mean? You kind of forced to discipline yourself to, yo, sit your ass down and like you're either gonna create or you're not.
yeah.
But let's take this back to, let's say, your teenage years. I really want to tap into what influenced you right around that age and what were you creating, if you can remember.
Yeah, so at school I remember, and that's what I mean. I found some sketchbooks the other day from work when I was like started when I was about 12, so I was about 16, 17. And I remember being really influenced by like the graffiti scene in Cape Town. I used to catch the train like into school or into the city itself, and like all along the railway tracks, like I suppose like most major cities in the world, was just this incredible like artwork everywhere I went. And I really got into. I never got into actually writing on walls and stuff, but that's what my sketchbook was full of, just like tags and like graffiti, like one day to be graffiti pieces and what have you. So that was a huge influence. And then I've been a surfer my whole life, and I remember like always sitting in class, like drawing all the surf logos from magazines. So like a lot of typesetting and stuff, which later on in life I realized I absolutely hate. Like no offense to graphic designers, but type in a constricted setting, I can't wrap my head around it. And all respect to graphic designers who are able to do that, but I kind of moved away from the whole type thing. I remember drawing a lot of like copying a lot of Iron Maiden albums and Guns N' Roses, and so like yeah, music was a big thing as well. I grew up in the '90s, so it was all about like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, all those kind of grunge bands, which kind of later grew into the whole new sort of punk scene. Um, so yeah, I was always influenced by that sort of like scene, drawing band logos like Metallica and all of that. And that's what I did in my teens. I remember I did do a few abstract paintings at school. Like obviously I took art at school. And yeah, again, I was trying to do a lot of portrait stuff. I think my final piece at school was like an old man, or actually, no, it was a baby looking in a mirror, seeing an old man looking back, um, which was supposed to be kind of realistic, but had like 8 hours to paint it, and it kind of turned into a bit of a abortion. It wasn't very good at all. Um, so yeah, that was kind of my teens. It was just heavily influenced by like pop culture at the time and kind of what was going on around me.
And it sounds like you were kind of just trying things, you know. I think in your teens, or not even just in your teens, but I think just in general, man. If you like something, if something is sparking some type of feel in you, you should try to see where that goes creatively, right? I mean, like you
100%.
said,
Yeah.
you tried out the type, and you noticed that graphic design wasn't for you, but you actually tried it. I mean, you went through that phase, and believe it or not, you probably gained some skills while doing it at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I only realized graphic design wasn't for me when I went to study graphic design, like just after school. Um, so yeah, I basically I finished school. My school kind of screwed up with my subject choice, and basically they let me take subjects that wouldn't. In South Africa, to get into university, you need to get what's called an exemption, and you need certain subjects. You need to get marks in certain subjects to get into university. And the school screwed up and didn't let me take the right subjects. So like I think it was 6 months 6 months into my final year. So like 3 months before my final exams, they came to me and were like, you don't have the right subjects to get a matric exemption. So you need to take either science, biology, or maths, and pick one of those subjects up and pass it in order to get into university. So it's like, right, okay. So the easiest one out of those for me would have been biology, and took biology. All my other subjects like arts and everything I was doing really well at, like kind of completely dropped off and ended up failing, didn't get into university. So I ended up going to do a year of marketing. And it was then that I was just like, nah, like just work, like normal study for me. I'm just not that way minded. I can't, yeah, I really struggle with kind of textbook learning. Um, so I came to the UK for a year, no, for 6 months to earn money to go back and study. And I went back to study graphic design. And yeah, I I was in a bit of a bad place in terms of kind of doing a lot of drugs at the time, and just really didn't get on with the whole graphic design thing. But what I did learn in it was how to use Photoshop, how to use Illustrator, and all those kind of those skills that actually have turned out to be really really valuable. Um, so yeah, it was yeah. Sorry, long
Yeah,
story, bit
man.
of a rant.
Now you're good. Case in point, at the end of the day, now you have those skills and you're able to utilize them and your current things. So, let's tap into your mind a little bit around this time. What did you want to become? Like, did you have some sort of vision for yourself, or you just kind of like going with the flow, just trying to figure it out?
I think like not getting into the university at the time, like that was my goal. So I was 17 when I finished school, and I was like, that was I wanted to get into university. Like that was the whole point of going to school for me. I can't even think what I wanted to study because my life has changed so much since that point. But yeah, so it was a big hit. Like it kind of threw me off completely. I think I was wanted to study fine art, but I can't. Yeah, I seriously can't remember what it was. I've done so many things since then. Um, but yeah, so like as a 17-year-old, not kind of achieving what you'd gone to school for 10 years, kind of threw me off kilter completely. Ended up hanging out with like the wrong people and got into some like really heavy shit. So yeah, my mind was all over the place to be honest with you. It still is a little bit.
Aren't we all, man? Shit. But so at this time, like, let's talk about that a little bit, because I can relate to some degree. Um, when you were in this darker times, right? You kind of like lost in a sense, you're just kind of like roaming around doing your thing. Were you still creating? And if so, what kind of stuff were you creating, if you can remember? Because I can imagine
Yeah.
like that state of mind was probably creating something completely different.
Yeah, 100%. I was definitely I was drawing a lot with kind of just black biro. Um so yeah, pretty dark sort of characters and kind of weird scenes. Obviously with the black biro, we kind of created a really cool atmosphere for kind of darker art. It was nothing like really grotesque. It was just kind of just had a kind of dark atmosphere to it, if that makes sense. So I did one piece which was probably about an A1 sort of size paper, full in biro of this weird, twisted, morphing clown going into kind of weird backdrops and just really like I think it's quite cool. I found it the other day and thought actually that's pretty sick. But yeah, I was always drawing because I mean that was basically because I was just tweaking all the time. I was just always awake and kind of always needing something to do. But yeah, I was always still fully interested in art.
Now, I just pinned up a tweet that you made with this like Cyclops character. Um, let's talk. How did that come to be? where did you get that like inspo? Was it from this time when you were making your characters? You know, how did that evolve?
Nah, so that just I started drawing that. I started. I mean, you can see in the loop, like it starts off just a lot of kind of brushstrokes and abstract stuff, and I literally started how I start all my paintings. I just kind of see where they go, and I think I started that like probably about 4 or 5 nights ago, and it was just after all the shit with Gary Gensler and the SEC and like all the bad mouthing about crypto and crypto's going to die and all this like bullshit basically all this FUD basically. And I think that was just sat in the back of my mind. So yeah, like the character just kind of came about. I mean, I think I remember it was probably just after I finished school. Or no, when I was studying, I kind of lost interest in kind of trying to do everything the right way when it came to kind of drawing figures or forms. I've never done any kind of formal training when it comes to art, and I just used to start drawing and just carry on. Like I've never had a plan, never had kind of I find it really hard to kind of visualize things before I see them. So I kind of I'll draw a line and kind of think, okay, well, let's draw a little bit more of it in this direction, and then stuff like that kind of materializes, and that's fully like how that little character guy came about. Um,
Hell yeah,
and
bro,
then,
fire.
what's that?
No, I said yeah, it's fire. It's very unique. That's why I brought it up. I was like, yo, this is it has a lot
Yeah,
of
so
joint to it.
a lot of the stuff, yeah, as I said, like it was during when I was 16, was sort of character based. Um, and I actually ended up like with that sketchbook, I ended up going to go study 3D animation. And I got into 3D animation with that sketchbook, which is a lot of just random characters. And like that's what I was saying earlier, like that birthday card, the Father's Day card that I found with my dad, like the hands, the way I draw hands, and the way I've drawn the face or the head shape and what have you in that piece that you're talking about now is really similar to the way that I was drawing when I was a kid. Um, and I kind of feel like that's the style that I've developed by not kind of trying to draw everything in the right proportions and just kind of just going with it.
No, I love it, bro. And the reason I asked that about, if you're creating in your darker times, because one of the things that I really look for in a creative and an artist in particular is kind of like why they create in the first place. There's a big difference from creating based on like a hobby or just when you're kind of feeling inspired. Like that's easy, man. But to create on a constant basis, just because you have that feeling of like, yo, if I don't do something right now, like I don't know, I'm just not feeling good. Like it kind of becomes an obsession, and so it sounds to me like you have that tendency as well to have that need to just fucking create just to create, regardless of what happens to said piece or where it goes or whatever. Like, and I think that's really like, honestly, I think that's what it takes in order to create a career out of this because it's just like on the constant you're learning a lot about yourself in the process. You're able to take things that you created years ago, and for whatever reason, like maybe subconsciously you bring that back and use it as a tool for your new stuff in a new different way. But it's just that ability to, or not even the ability, but just kind of like that need, bro, to just have to create. So it sounds like you're in that similar boat.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think there have been times in my life where I have stopped creating, um, or it's shifted to other things. Like I did photography for a while as well, um, and then I guess I mean I love photography and I've got a lot of respect for good photographers because it is really hard to be an expert at it. Um, but the idea of creating something from absolutely nothing, i.e., drawing, painting, that kind of any sort of visual arts is what kind of keeps me going, and what I really get a buzz from. I think so that piece that you pinned, that's the first. This is really the first kind of like illustrative, like really raw illustrative piece that I've done. Obviously, I've drawn a few kind of traits for other projects, or like drawn like one of ones for like guest one of ones and what have you. And they're still quite confined. They're still quite kind of restricted. And like that piece that you're showing there, like that I've just had so much fun doing that. I've literally just had an absolute blast. Like not really caring. Um, and then I have kind of gone back into it and kind of refined parts, but at the time I was just really loose and really having fun with it, and yeah, just really into kind of maybe doing some more illustrative stuff like that. Because yeah, I'm
While we're on the
having so much
topic of this piece, man, do you mind kind of like taking us through the process a little bit? Because looking at it, man, it's like fuck. There's a lot going on. There's so many shapes and like the color palette. It just works. But to be able to recreate that would be a nightmare. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Well, as I say, like that's it started as it was going to be an abstract painting, so it it was never intended to be that when I started. But as I say, that's how I work. I just kind of see what comes. So obviously, I got the character. The whole idea of it was with all the FUD and leave crypto now. I've kind of got this character that I want. It's almost kind of he's leaving with his bag full of nothing. His suitcase has got nothing in it. You got this precarious kind of Gary Gensler based character in the background. Um, so it's kind of all the things in it are just kind of inspired by the news that was news that week. It was really hard for me to explain the process because, as I say, like that was the process. It just kind of like came about. Kind of look for shapes and what have you within the brush strokes and the colors. The palette that I'd chosen was a palette that I've been working with on quite a few kind of abstract pieces recently. So yeah, it it is just that it just kind of came about with kind of what the news stories were and what was going in my head at the time.
And roughly, like, around how many layers would you say this is? And then, because you still need to properly prepare for this, I assume over time you tend to, especially digitally, you tend to find the brushes that you like working with, certain weights, certain, just visually the way it looks. I see a lot of patterns. So how does that gonna be? Like, you have your set brushes before you actually go in and go free,
Um, yeah, so for this one, I basically used like a palette set. So it's some brush set on Procreate, which is meant to replicate kind of painting with a palette. Doesn't really, but what it does is it adds those wicked textures in. So I think in layer terms, I think there's only about 6 layers in it. Obviously the character itself and the eyes and the little Gensler head, that's all one layer. And then the background and stuff was literally so there's 2 layers. There's the top kind of yellowy layer and the blue layer underneath that. And yeah, basically through processes of rubbing out and just kind of looking what patterns I could find within the strokes that I'd laid down originally. I just kind of started drawing the background from that, and then I kind of saw a bit of a. It's almost like in my head, it's almost like a caravan in the background. So I started like bringing that out a bit by just filling it in. And then yeah, so with the little little blue, sorry, the little yellow squares or what have you. It's like, oh, this could be like a little city in the background, but then kind of got bored of that idea and moved it around. So yeah, a lot of the planning just happens while I'm doing it. Um,
I
yeah,
personally like after going through your stuff, I really like this piece. I just pinned it to the top, Spectrum.
yeah,
Um, and I'll kind of just go in why I like it. First of all, it reminds me of a graffiti wall that's been painted over and over and over again. So the layering looks insane. And then what I really love about it is you put these little hits of like 3D shapes that don't make sense, but it fits well. You know, it's like they're kind of just popping out of the whole scene, and it's so simplistic. I love that you kept it just in white, like the squares, and then like the cloud. But something about that just shifts the piece from being a flat abstract piece to giving it some depth on that particular spot. So yeah, man, really,
yeah.
really big piece.
Thanks for that. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm really fond of this piece as well. Again, like this, I've got a few pieces. I've done a few pieces where it's really clear that kind of graffiti was a big influence to me and my artwork. I think it still is, even though it's not something I kind of actively look for these days. Obviously, if I see any really good work, I'll definitely stop and photograph it and admire it and what have you. But it's not like I live in like a little coastal town in England, in Newquay, in Cornwall, and it's a really weird place because there's an arts university here, and there's some fucking amazing artists, but their work isn't ever on display anywhere. Like there's no galleries selling their work. There's no like so you can only actually see the students' work by going to the university itself. Um, so yeah, like I've got like no exposure to kind of street art anymore. Other than if I do find it kind of watching a video or online or something. So kind of all of this coming out is definitely like what you were talking about earlier, like bringing back stuff from the past and bringing back influences and things like that. Um, I've embellished this piece a little bit more. Like again, what we were talking about, like if you look at something and think, oh yeah, I should do a bit more or add something else to it. Where I've actually added some characters like sort of eyeballs and made almost like a skeleton shape with the bottom line with the two yellow lines and the yellow bit going through it. I've almost formed a jaw there, kind of linking up with the white stripe in the bottom corner, um, which is kind of just in kind of on my iPad in my sort of private file, if that makes sense. Um, but it has definitely inspired me to kind of push this a little bit further with future pieces. So thanks, I really appreciate that comment.
So when you're creating, right, it sounds like even though you think you're done, you take a step back and you look at it, and if you start to visually see something, like you said, like down there, those two yellow lines, kind of creating a jaw, then you'll start to bring it out, right? And you'll continue this process until you feel like, oh, it's finally done.
Um, yeah, so I kind of don't. So my whole thing with the work that I'm minting and the work that I'm putting up is that I want it to be kind of as authentic in the moment as possible, especially like I'm talking about abstract work. So a lot of it, I don't go back. Like it'll be done in one sitting. Um, because I just kind of feel that's more pure. Because like my whole thing is kind of getting that emotion out and getting that's what's driving me to do these paintings. So I kind of feel it almost be cheating to kind of go back and start looking for things. But by myself, like privately, yeah, I definitely find myself sometimes kind of just sit down look at the work that I've done in the past and kind of go, oh yeah, this would be quite cool to do that, and oh yeah, let's try this, and yeah, do end up kind of creating another piece where it kind of goes to the next step or a few steps further. And I guess there again, that's one of the beauties about digital art, because I don't end up with a pile of disused canvases anymore. I just end up with more files on my iPad. So it's quite a, it's definitely a benefit there.
All right, so for everybody listening in, his current stuff, what you're doing is very raw. It's just you're in there, you create it, and what comes out of it, that's the piece. I love
Yeah,
that. And I love that you're strict on yourself with that series, because as artists, we tend to really have a shit ton of ideas and kind of, steer this way, steer that way so to be kind of strict on yourself in the sense that, this is what I'm creating right now, until further notice. This is what it's going to be. So, can you talk about that exactly? Like, what are you creating right now? What are you setting yourself up for? What are the next things that we can look out for?
so I actually just minted a new collect series today of 6 paintings, like physical paintings that I've kind of just digitized as NFTs. Um, I think during this kind of down market, I've been doing a lot more physical work and trying to. I really want to try to start getting into like galleries, like local galleries and what have you. As I said, I live in like a really creative sort of town, um, but there's a massive shortage of galleries, so that's a bit of a lose situation. But yeah, I just want to push my physical work a little bit. I, as you said earlier, like working digitally has definitely improved my physical work, I feel. Um, and I just want to take the next step and start kind of selling that. I mean, the long term goal would definitely be to be a full time artist. At the moment, life's pretty jam packed. I've got 2 kids. I work a full time job, like a lot of the people in the space. Um,
Bro, if you're not in our server, Window Kids, definitely tap in because a realization that I had, right, with everything that I do, I have a lot of knowledge of. I think I have a pretty good streak when it comes to finding an artist, a talent, and based on their current situation and what they want to do, I can help facilitate the gaps, and give some advice there. Very curated to that specific person,
yeah,
just based off my experiences, and that's what I want to create. That's what I want to have the server to be, where I'm kind of like more in touch bases with creatives that I really want to take this to the next level. Because I think I have a lot of value in that sense of like even the whole, you know, being digital, going physical. I would say I have a pretty big influence in that, man, because I remember, back in the day when I was kind of like maybe 3, 4 months into Web3. I had to talk with High Blinks, right? And we were going back and forth about, doing physical. And then next thing I know, I kind of see her, diving into physical, which is really dope to see. And
yeah,
then the same thing with Soulcat, right? He was all digital and now he's like sketching, he's painting. And it's really cool to see because now I'm seeing how that's translating into the digital and fucking it's insane, bro. Like insane talented artists. And I love that they're exploring into this side because I think it's very important to do to really, develop your skill set as a creative as a whole. So that's something that I'm realizing like I need to really do and hone in and I don't want to do like a course. I want to do like more just maybe I don't know, man. Like I really need feedback from other artists in the sense of like how can I help, and what would be the best way and the easiest way to do that in a short time span. So if you haven't hopped in, bro, like definitely jump in there and let's definitely chat after this some of the day one on one. because I would definitely love to help. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be sick, right?
thanks for that.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. I try my best to use Discord. I just really struggle with it. But yeah, I will definitely hit you up for sure.
And that's what I'm saying. Like I know everybody's so fucking busy, and being in a server is not ideal. So I don't want to use it as a place like, oh, let's have everybody just in there just fucking talking. Like, no, I
Yeah,
want to use it as a place like, yo, this is where the info's at, and you can come in and tap into it whenever you want to, right? But not necessarily be like, oh, you need to be there every single second. So that's what I'm like thinking. I'm even thinking potentially making it like a closed Discord, like invite only type of thing, because I really want to drop hella knowledge in there and just kind of leave it there for people to come in and utilize it as they want, really. So
yeah,
we'll
it
see,
sounds
man.
good.
We'll see what happens. It's Web3 is a whole fucking experience as a whole. So the fact that we're in here, uh, doing our thing it says a lot. So that's awesome, bro. And we're coming down to like the 1 hour mark. So if there's anybody in the audience that has a question, a statement, this is the time to come up and raise your hand, and I'll bring you up. Meanwhile, bro, dude, your stuff is amazing. I'm definitely gonna cop a piece for the ODK Vault. So, yeah, I'm gonna check it out, bro. What
Appreciate it.
else are you kind of like? So you said you're doing digital, you're doing physical at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you actually said you're part time, which is kind of amazing, bro. I thought you were full time. What are you doing on the side as well, like from being an artist?
So that arts university I mentioned, I work in events there. I'm part of the events team, so do a lot of kind of corporate events. Um, and yeah, it's like completely different. It used to be super fun. It used to be super creative. And then COVID happened, and it became kind of like a processing game. Um, so yeah, I think that's what it is. I kind of come home from work pretty stressed out, have a mental 2 hours with the kids where they're just absolutely batshit crazy, and then at about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I get to sit down for kind of 2 hours and do my art, and kind of that's what keeps me going. So yeah, pretty strict with it. I think when I got my iPad, I think it was about 7 or 8 months that I literally drew every single day without fail. That was getting an iPad was single-handedly the best thing that ever happened to me creatively, because it kind of, especially with having such a busy life, allowed me to just pick up my art wherever I was and crack on with it. I think without that, I probably wouldn't be being as busy as I am. So yeah, that's how I fit it all in. I think it's probably only about 2 nights a week that I don't paint. I try and do it as much as possible. Um, so yeah, hence why I managed to get quite a lot of work out.
Damn, bro, you sound like a busy man, dude. That's and the fact that you're still going for it. It goes back to my point where it sounds like you just need to create, man. Doesn't matter if you have a full time job. Doesn't
100%.
matter if you have kids. You have that 2 hour window at night, and you're like, yo, this is I'm about to go in. But you have 2 hours out of 24 hours in the day, and you're just like, I'm gonna make it happen, bro. And you're making it happen. You're here with us. You're pushing your art. People are obviously liking your work. They're collecting your work. So that's amazing, dude. You should be proud.
Nice one.
But dude, this has been an absolute pleasure. Dude. We're right around the 1 hour mark, so we're about to close this up in a bit. Um, I do like to leave with one last question before we close it out, and it's always, if you can go back in time and meet your younger self, what is the one thing that you would tell them?
Don't do drugs. No, fuck that. Actually, drugs aren't that bad. I would. Yeah, I'd say just fucking go the creative path. Always choose a creative path. I think it took me a good few years to realize that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I only ended up kind of even at 30 years old well, no, I was 27 years old when I went back to uni. I didn't even take the creative path then, even though I knew I wanted to. So I went back to study and I was tossing it up between animation, fine art, illustration, and then I ended up going with creative events management, which gave me a really good grounding for business and kind of commercial stuff. But I kind of wish I didn't. I kind of wish I went the art route. Um, but I always said, hey, my reason for going for the business route was always like I can always do the art stuff on the side, um, and which is what I've done. So, but that's what I tell myself: just take the creative path each time.
Absolutely, man. I definitely believe that. Like, I believe creative people will change the world, man. I haven't found a creative person that, it's just not tapped into this stuff. Like, it's amazing to see the growth, the development. I feel like being a creative really kind of shows you who you are in that moment, and also shows you that you're constantly changing and evolving. And I think as human beings, like, that's the direction that we should take, right? Seeking constant growth and just kind of like, just developing to be a better person each day. Oh, we actually have a question, so let me bring YC up before we close this out. um let me Yeah, I'm connecting him right now. He should be good in a bit. But dude, amazing story. Fuck. Like I said before we started this space, I always leave inspired, motivated to create, and just feeling good, knowing that there's other people like me. There's other creators just also doing their thing in their own world, their own way. So, what a pleasure, bro. YC, let me hold on. Okay, you're good to go, bro. YC, you can come up and speak, man.
Nice one, brother. That was a really awesome spaces. Acidhatmat, I love your style. And there's something about your persona. I feel like every time I hear you speak to creative, you just vibe and you get this like amazing dialogue out of them. So it's really nice to hear. And I just really liked your honest. You were so honest about your creative flow, Acid Hat Matt. Like that you were just like, I just draw a line, and then sometimes the line carries on, and sometimes it doesn't. And it's again, like when you listen to these creative spaces, you just hear like this multitude of different ways people essentially pull from the universe and bring into reality. And I really like the way you portrayed that, man. So yeah, just big up on awesome spaces.
Thanks very much, man. Really
Yeah,
appreciate
much
that.
love, man. YC, thank you, bro. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And dude, again, a pleasure. We have to chop it up one on one, Acid Hat, and make some stuff happen, bro.
Thanks for
It's,
like
it's
much appreciated, mate.
Yeah, definitely, bro.
Have a good one.
That being said, I hope everybody has a great fucking weekend. And what a space! We're gonna close it out with a little bit of music, and then much love to everybody. You guys know where to catch us. One Dope Kids. Let's go.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, guys.